The unexpected discovery. The wilderness had been Raven's only companion for the past 5 years. After the collapse of civilization in 2042, she had retreated deep into the Cascade Mountains, where the towering evergreens and pristine lakes provided better company than the desperate remnants of humanity. Her survival skills, honed through years of military training and wilderness expertise, had served her well in this self-imposed exile. On this particular evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of amber and purple, something unusual caught her attention. A streak of blue light cut across the darkening horizon, followed by a sound that didn't belong in these ancient forests, the unmistakable hum of advanced technology. Raven's instincts screamed danger, but curiosity won out. Grabbing her worn backpack and trusted rifle, she tracked the anomaly through the dense undergrowth. The sound led her to a small clearing where the trees had been pushed back in a perfect circle, their branches bent as if by an invisible force. In the center sat a pod, no larger than a small car, its surface gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence. As Raven approached, her hand steady but her heart racing, the pod's surface rippled like liquid metal. A seam appeared, and with a soft hiss, it split open. Inside, nestled in a cradle of pulsing light, lay a child, but not a human child. Its skin was a pale lavender, marked with swirling patterns that seemed to shift in the fading daylight. 2 sets of eyes, all of them a deep amber, blinked up at her. The infant couldn't have been more than a few months old, yet there was an awareness in those eyes that made Raven's breath catch. "Well," she whispered, "you're definitely not from around here." A soft chirping sound emerged from the child, and suddenly the pod's interior lit up with holographic symbols. They danced in the air, forming patterns that Raven couldn't begin to understand. But one message became clear: this child had been left here deliberately. As she watched, the pod began to deteriorate, its surface crumbling like sand in the wind. Within minutes, only the child remained, wrapped in what appeared to be a blanket made of starlight. Raven knew she should be afraid, should be running in the opposite direction. Instead, she found herself reaching out. The moment her fingers touched the child's skin, a warmth spread through her body, and images flooded her mind. A dying world, a desperate race, and a choice no parent should have to make. The child, she somehow knew their name was Nova, had been born different. In their society, such differences were seen as dangerous, potentially catastrophic for their carefully ordered world. Rather than submit Nova to their world's harsh protocols, the parents had chosen Earth, a planet known for its chaos, its adaptability, and most importantly, its capacity for acceptance. They had chosen hope over certainty, love over law. "They left you here because they loved you," Raven murmured, gathering Nova into her arms. "And now you're stuck with me." Nova's response was to reach up with tiny hands, touching Raven's face with gentle curiosity. The contact sent another wave of warmth through her, along with a profound sense of trust. This child, this impossible being from beyond the stars, had been placed in her path for a reason. As darkness settled over the forest, Raven made her way back to her cabin, Nova secured against her chest. The child remained remarkably quiet, those 4 amber eyes taking in everything with an intelligence that both unnerved and amazed her. The cabin was small but secure, built with both natural camouflage and defensive measures in mind. Raven had spent years making it invisible to the outside world. Now, as she settled Nova onto her bed, she realized those precautions would be more important than ever. "First thing tomorrow," she told the child, who was examining the simple wooden spoon with fascination, "we need to figure out exactly what you can do. Something tells me you're full of surprises." Nova chirped in response, and for a moment, the spoon seemed to wobble in their tiny grasp. Raven blinked, wondering if her eyes were playing tricks on her. But deep down she knew her life had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more meaningful. As she prepared a makeshift bed for Nova, Raven couldn't help but smile. The universe had a strange sense of humor, sending an alien child to perhaps the one person in these mountains who wouldn't immediately run screaming. Or worse, try to profit from the discovery. "We'll figure this out together," she promised, watching Nova finally drift off to sleep, their lavender skin glowing softly in the darkness. "You're safe now." Little did she know, their discovery had not gone unnoticed. High above the Earth's atmosphere, sensors had detected the pod's arrival. In underground facilities and hidden laboratories, computers were already analyzing the data, and wheels were being set in motion. The peace of Raven's woodland sanctuary was about to be shattered, and the true test of her commitment to this strange, beautiful child was about to begin. Powers awakening. 3 months had passed since Raven found Nova in the forest. The mountain spring was in full bloom, painting the wilderness in vibrant colors that seemed to fascinate her alien ward. Nova had grown remarkably fast, already displaying the mobility and awareness of a human toddler. But it was becoming increasingly clear that they were anything but human. It started with small things. Objects would shift slightly when Nova was upset. Toys would float just inches above the ground during their moments of joy. At first, Raven dismissed these occurrences as tricks of the light or her imagination. Then came the morning that changed everything. Raven was chopping firewood outside the cabin when she heard Nova's distressed chirp from inside. She dropped the axe and rushed in, only to find every piece of furniture hovering 3 feet off the ground. Nova sat in the center of the room, all 4 eyes glowing with an intense golden light. "Easy there, little star," Raven said softly, using the nickname she'd given Nova. "Everything's okay. I'm here." The furniture settled back down with surprising gentleness as Nova reached for her. When Raven picked them up, she felt the familiar warm buzz of their mental connection, another ability that had manifested over time. Through it, she sensed Nova's fear and confusion. "I know it's scary," she soothed, "but we'll figure this out together. You're just growing into yourself." Over the next few weeks, Raven developed a training routine of sorts. She would set up simple exercises using pine cones and leaves, helping Nova learn to control their telekinetic abilities. The child proved to be an incredibly quick learner, their powers growing stronger, but also more precise with each passing day. But with these developments came new dangers. Nova's abilities were becoming harder to hide. The energy they released during particularly strong emotional moments would cause auroras in the night sky, visible for miles. Raven knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. Her fears were confirmed one evening when she spotted drone lights through the trees. They were still distant, but their systematic search pattern was unmistakable. Someone was looking for something, or someone. "Time for a new lesson, little star," Raven whispered to Nova as they watched the lights from their cabin window. "Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is stay hidden." She began teaching Nova how to suppress their energy signature, using meditation techniques she'd learned during her military days. It was challenging, like asking a sun not to shine, but Nova seemed to understand the necessity. Their quiet life had become a delicate balance of growth and concealment. During the day, they would practice in secret clearings deep in the forest, where Nova learned to lift increasingly heavy objects and even create simple force fields. At night, they would work on control, on keeping their power contained and hidden from prying eyes. But it wasn't all training and hiding. There were moments of pure joy too. Nova had developed a particular delight in using their abilities to create beautiful patterns with fallen leaves and flower petals. They would spend hours arranging them in intricate mandalas that seemed to tell stories Raven couldn't quite understand but could feel in her heart. Through their mental connection, Raven began to understand more about Nova's origins. Fragments of memories, not their own but inherited somehow, would surface during quiet moments. She saw glimpses of a world with 3 moons, of cities that seemed to sing, and of a society that had achieved technological marvels, but had lost something vital along the way: the ability to embrace difference. "You're not a mistake," Raven would tell Nova during their nightly routine, as she helped them practice controlling their glow. "Your evolution. Change. Maybe that's what scared them, but it's what makes you beautiful. Nova would respond with a chirp that sounded almost like laughter, sending waves of affection through their bond. These moments made all the challenges worth it, but they couldn't completely erase Raven's growing concern. The drones were appearing more frequently now, and she'd caught glimpses of unmarked vehicles on the distant forest roads. Their sanctuary was shrinking, and she knew they needed to prepare for the possibility of discovery. One night, as a storm raged outside their cabin, Raven made a decision. She pulled out her old military gear from its hiding place under the floorboards, equipment she'd hoped never to use again. As she checked her weapons and communication devices, Nova watched with those intelligent eyes. "I promise to keep you safe," Raven said, meeting their gaze. "And I will. But I need you to promise me something, too. If anything ever happens to me, you run. You hide. You survive." Nova's response was unexpected. They floated over to Raven's side and placed their small hands on the rifle she was cleaning. The metal began to glow with the same patterns that marked Nova's skin, and Raven felt a surge of determination through their bond. The message was clear. They would face whatever came together. As thunder rolled across the mountains, Raven pulled Nova close, feeling the steady pulse of their power. She had found them in the wilderness, but they had found something too. A purpose, a bond, a love that transcended the barriers of species and space. Whatever forces were closing in on them, they would have to reckon with that love. And unknown to both of them, at that very moment, in a facility deep beneath the earth, a team of scientists was analyzing energy readings from the mountains, readings that defied explanation, readings that would soon bring their world crashing down around them. Sanctuary under siege. The morning stillness shattered with the distant thrum of helicopter rotors. Raven jolted awake, her years of training kicking in before her conscious mind could fully process the sound. Nova was already up, their 4 amber eyes fixed on the cabin's window. Tiny hands pressed against the glass as the first rays of dawn painted the forest in shades of gold. "They're here," Raven breathed, quickly gathering their emergency supplies. She'd hoped they'd have more time, but she prepared for this moment. "Remember what we practiced, little star?" Nova nodded, their lavender skin dimming to an almost gray tone as they suppressed their natural glow. Through their mental link, Raven felt their mix of fear and determination. The child had grown so much in the past months, not just in their abilities, but in their understanding of the danger they faced. Commander Pierce stood in the command center of his mobile unit, studying thermal imaging displays of the mountain region. After months of tracking anomalous energy signatures, they'd finally pinpointed the source. His team had surrounded the area in a 5-mile radius, but he knew better than to underestimate their quarry. The subject's file had made that clear. "Target structure located," a voice crackled through his headset. "1 heat signature. No, wait, 2 signatures. The second one's different, sir, like nothing we've ever seen." Pierce's jaw tightened. "Remember, I want them both alive. The adult is ex-military, highly trained. The child is an unknown quantity. Proceed with extreme caution." Raven led Nova through a narrow tunnel she'd spent months digging beneath the cabin. The sound of boots crunching on leaves above them grew louder as they crawled through the earth. Nova remained remarkably quiet, understanding the gravity of their situation through the bond they shared. They emerged half a mile away in a dense thicket of ferns. Raven's heart sank as she heard helicopters approaching from multiple directions. They were being boxed in. "Commander," the radio buzzed. "Target structure is empty, but we got fresh tracks heading east." Pierce smiled grimly. "Just as expected. Deploy the containment field. Let's see how they handle being trapped in their own territory." The air suddenly hummed with electricity. Raven felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up as an energy barrier materialized around them, creating a massive dome over several acres of the forest. They were caught in a giant cage. "Nova," Raven whispered, crouching down to meet all 4 of their eyes. I need you to stay calm. Whatever happens, don't let them see what you can really do. Not unless there's no other choice. But Nova's attention was elsewhere, their eyes fixed on something through the trees. Raven followed their gaze and saw him. Commander Pierce, flanked by heavily armed soldiers in black tactical gear. Their weapons looked different from standard military issue. They were designed for something specific. Raven Blackwood, Pierce called out, his voice carrying across the clearing. 5 years is a long time to hide in these woods, but then you always were good at disappearing. Raven positioned herself between Nova and the soldiers. Julian Pierce, still doing the government's dirty work, I see. You know why we're here. Pierce took a step forward. That entity behind you, it's not your child. It's not even human. Think about what's at stake here. Nova's fear pulsed through their bond. But there was something else too, a growing anger. Raven felt the air around them begin to charge with energy. I know exactly what's at stake, Raven replied, her hand tightening on Nova's shoulder. The question is, do you? You're looking at a child, Pierce, not a weapon, not a specimen, a child. Pierce's expression hardened. A child with enough power to level cities. We've been monitoring the energy readings. Whatever that thing is, it's dangerous. The only danger here is what you'll turn them into, Raven countered. She could feel Nova trembling now, not with fear, but with barely contained power. The leaves around their feet had begun to rise, swirling gently in an unseen wind. Pierce raised his hand, and his soldiers raised their weapons. Last chance, Raven. Step aside. Let us take it in. Nobody needs to get hurt here. Time seemed to slow. Raven felt Nova's consciousness brush against hers, sharing not just emotions now, but images, possible futures, branching paths. They could run, fight, or surrender. Each choice led to different outcomes, some devastating, some hopeful. Nova, Raven said softly, not taking her eyes off Pierce. Remember what I taught you about choice, about being different. Through their bond, she felt Nova's understanding bloom. The child stepped forward, their skin beginning to glow with an inner light that no amount of suppression could contain. The soldiers tensed, weapons trained on the small figure. Commander Pierce, Nova spoke, their voice a melody of harmonics that made everyone present freeze in shock. You fear what you don't understand. But fear is a choice. The clearing erupted into chaos. The soldiers opened fire, but their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against a shield that Nova had constructed. Pierce shouted orders, calling for backup, but his words were drowned out by the sound of pure energy crackling through the air. Raven watched in awe as Nova rose several feet off the ground, their power no longer contained. But instead of attacking, they began to create something. A display of light and energy that formed images in the air, telling a story of their world, their journey, their love for their adopted parent. You see weapons and threats. Nova's voice resonated in everyone's minds. But I choose to show you wonders. The forest filled with light, and the battle for their sanctuary became something else entirely. A moment of truth that would change everyone present forever. The underground network. The underground bunker hummed with activity as Raven followed their mysterious rescuer through winding corridors. Nova floated close behind, their glow dimmed but still visible in the artificial light. Just hours ago, they had been surrounded by Pierce's forces, and then everything changed with the arrival of a single figure who emerged from the shadows. Their savior, who had introduced herself only as Phoenix, moved with the precise grace of someone accustomed to staying invisible. Her dark skin was marked with iridescent tattoos that seemed to shift in the dim light, not unlike Nova's natural patterns. Welcome to Haven, Phoenix said, stopping before a massive steel door. One of the few places on Earth where being different isn't a death sentence. The door slid open silently, revealing a vast chamber that took Raven's breath away. The space was filled with beings of all descriptions, humans working alongside creatures that defied explanation. Some looked nearly human, Others were clearly not, but all moved with purpose and cooperation. "You're not the first to protect a child of the stars," Phoenix explained, leading them through the chamber. "And you won't be the last. We've been watching you both for months, making sure Pierce's people didn't find you before we could make contact." Nova's excitement pulsed through their bond as they took in the sights. Through their connection, Raven felt their joy at seeing others who shared similar patterns and abilities. But there was something else too, a recognition that went deeper than appearance. The others, like Nova, Raven began, watching as a group of children, both human and alien, practiced manipulating energy fields under the guidance of a tall, crystalline being. Where did they come from? Phoenix's expression softened. They were sent here, just like Nova. Earth isn't just a hiding place, it's a sanctuary planet. Has been for longer than most humans realize. Some of us have been helping to protect these children for generations. They passed through another section, where scientists worked with advanced technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with organic components. Your military background wasn't the only reason Nova's parents chose you, Raven. They saw something in you, the same thing we see in all our guardians, the capacity to love beyond boundaries. A small group approached them, led by a woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. She introduced herself as Director Sage, one of Haven's founders. "Your stand against Pierce's forces was brave," Sage said, her voice carrying an accent Raven couldn't place. "But it also forced our hand. We had hoped to keep Haven hidden for a while longer." "Why reveal yourselves now?" Raven asked, feeling Nova's curiosity mirror her own. "Because the game has changed," Phoenix answered. "Pierce and his superiors aren't just hunting individual children anymore. They've learned about the Sanctuary Network. They're trying to shut us down, planet-wide." Nova suddenly stiffened, their four eyes widening. Through their bond, Raven felt a surge of recognition as another child approached, one whose lavender skin and shifting patterns marked them as being from Nova's world. "This is Aurora," Sage introduced the newcomer. "She arrived 3 years ago. Like Nova, she was born with abilities that her people feared. And like Nova, she's proven that fear to be tragically misplaced." The two children regarded each other with intense curiosity. Without warning, the air between them began to shimmer with complex patterns of light and energy. They were communicating in a way Raven had never seen before. "They're sharing memories," Phoenix explained, watching the display with evident wonder. "Their species has the ability to transfer knowledge and experiences through energy manipulation. It's beautiful, isn't it?" Raven nodded, her throat tight with emotion. For months, she had tried her best to understand and support Nova, but this was something she could never have provided: connection with their own kind. "We're not asking you to give up your independence," Sage said, sensing Raven's conflict. "Haven isn't a prison or a permanent shelter. It's a hub, a place of learning and community. You and Nova are welcome to come and go as you need, to learn from others who walk similar paths." A commotion near one of the monitoring stations drew their attention. A technician was calling for Sage, their voice urgent. "Director, we've got movement. Pierce's people are mobilizing. Multiple sites, coordinated attacks. They're going after our surface sanctuaries." Sage's expression hardened. "How many locations?" 7 confirmed targets. They're not just hunting anymore. This is a full-scale operation." Phoenix turned to Raven, her tattoos pulsing with subtle light. "This is why we needed to bring you in now. We're going to need every guardian, every gifted child, every ally we can trust. The war for Earth's future as a sanctuary world is about to begin." Nova and Aurora had stopped their energy exchange, both now focused on the adults' conversation. Through their bond, Raven felt Nova's determination growing. They might be a child, but they understood what was at stake. "I won't let them turn Nova into a weapon," Raven stated firmly, her hand finding Nova's shoulder. "None of us will," Phoenix assured her. "But we might need to show them that underestimating these children Treating them as weapons rather than the gifted beings they are is a dangerous mistake. Director Sage nodded gravely. The question isn't whether we fight, but how we win while staying true to our principles. These children represent hope, not just for their own worlds, but for ours. We need to prove that acceptance and understanding are stronger than fear. As if in response to her words, Nova and Aurora began to glow in unison, their combined light filling the chamber with shifting patterns that seemed to tell stories of worlds beyond imagination. Around them, other children, human and alien alike, added their own lights to the display. Raven watched in awe, understanding that she was witnessing something unprecedented. The beginning of a revolution, not of violence, but of unity. The very thing Pierce and his superiors feared most, different species working together, learning from each other, protecting each other, was happening right before her eyes. And at the center of it all was Nova, her little star, shining brighter than ever before. A choice of worlds. The warning came during the darkest hour before dawn. Haven's sensors detected a massive energy signature entering Earth's atmosphere, a ship of impossible size, bearing the distinctive signature of Nova's homeworld. As the underground facility erupted into activity, Raven felt her heart constrict with a fear deeper than any she'd known during their battles with Pierce's forces. Nova stood at her side, their 4 amber eyes fixed on the massive display screen showing the approaching vessel. Through their bond, Raven felt a tornado of emotions. Recognition, longing, fear, and something deeper, love, not for the beings approaching in that massive ship, but for her, for Haven, for the family they had built here on Earth. "They're hailing us," Phoenix announced from her station, her iridescent tattoos pulsing with nervous energy. The signal matches Nova's genetic signature. It's their parents. Director Sage stepped forward, her silver hair seeming to catch non-existent starlight. "Open the channel. It's time we faced this moment." The screen flickered, and Raven found herself staring at beings she had only glimpsed in Nova's inherited memories. Their lavender skin bore the same shifting patterns as Nova's, but their eyes, all 4 of them, held none of the warmth that made Nova so special. "We have come for our child," the female figure announced, her voice a symphony of harmonics that filled the chamber. "The experiment is concluded. The Council has reconsidered their position." Raven felt Nova's hand slip into hers, squeezing tightly. Through their connection, images flashed between them, memories of their time together, of lessons learned, of love shared. But there was something else too, a revelation that Nova was trying to share. "It wasn't just about my differences, was it?" Nova spoke aloud, their voice carrying a strength that made everyone in Haven turn to listen. "I was never an accident. I was a test." The alien parents shifted uncomfortably on screen. "You were created to be different," the father admitted, "to see if Earth would accept what our world could not. Your abilities, your capacity to bond with humans. It was all by design." "A test." Raven's voice shook with anger. "You abandoned your child as part of an experiment." "We had to know," the mother insisted. "Our world is dying. We needed to understand if coexistence was possible, if Earth could truly be a sanctuary. Your bond with our child proved what we hoped, that humanity has the capacity to embrace difference, to love what they don't understand." Director Sage stepped forward. "And now that your experiment has succeeded, you think you can simply take them back?" "Nova belongs with their own kind," the father stated. "They have a greater purpose to serve. Our world needs them, needs what they represent." The air in Haven crackled with energy as Nova floated upward, their skin glowing with an intensity that lit the entire chamber. Around them, other gifted children, both human and alien, began to rise as well, creating a display of unity and power that took everyone's breath away. "You're wrong." Nova's voice resonated through the chamber, carrying the weight of truth. "I don't belong to any one world. I belong where I choose to belong." Through their bond, Raven felt Nova's decision crystallizing. The child turned to face their biological parents on the screen, all four eyes blazing with inner light. "You created me to be a bridge between worlds," Nova continued. "But you forgot something important. Bridges don't belong to either side. They connect. They unite. That's what I am, what all of us here are. We're not your experiment anymore. We're the future." The alien parents were silent for a long moment, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. But Raven could see the shift in their posture, the gradual understanding dawning in their gaze. "The Council will not accept this," the mother finally said, but her voice held a note of uncertainty. "Then perhaps it's time for the Council to change," Nova replied. "Earth has taught me that strength lies in adaptation, in accepting change rather than fearing it. My place is here, helping others like me find their way. But that doesn't mean I reject you or our world. It means I choose to be part of both." Raven felt tears sliding down her cheeks as pride and love swelled in her chest. The child she had found in the wilderness had grown into something extraordinary, not because of their powers, but because of their heart. Director Sage stepped forward again. "Your child speaks wisdom that both our worlds need to hear. Let Nova be what you designed them to be, a true bridge between our peoples. Let them help us build something greater than either of our worlds could achieve alone." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Finally, the alien father spoke, his voice softer than before. Perhaps we too have something to learn about acceptance." The agreement that followed was unprecedented. An official recognition of Earth's status as a sanctuary world, with Haven serving as a center for cooperation between species. Nova would remain on Earth with Raven, but would also serve as an ambassador, helping to forge connections between their two worlds. As the massive ship departed Earth's atmosphere hours later, Raven held Nova close, feeling the warmth of their bond stronger than ever. Around them, Haven hummed with renewed purpose as humans and aliens worked together, preparing for a future that none of them could have imagined months ago. "You know," Raven said softly to Nova, "when I found you in those woods, I thought I was saving you. But the truth is, you saved all of us." Nova's response came not in words, but in a surge of love and belonging through their bond. Above them, through Haven's hidden skylights, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating a new chapter in the story of two worlds. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a council of beings who had once feared difference began to consider the possibility that their greatest strength might lie not in uniformity, but in the beautiful, chaotic, wonderful diversity of life itself.